Right, the Restaurant Association of South Africa, RASA, wants government to explain why on-site alcohol consumption is still prohibited. It comes as restaurants prepare to open their doors to the public for sit-in dining. From today, alcohol may not be sold at the restaurants from Monday to Thursday. For more on the story, we're joined on the line by Restaurant Association of South Africa CEO Wendy Alberts. Wendy, a very good morning to you. The last time we spoke to you, you were still ironing out a few things with government. What's the latest?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for inviting us. We were completely shocked to find that we were not allowed to sell alcohol with our last submission that we put through to government. You know, we had put in our proposal that we had outlined every indication of how important alcohol as well as the social distancing was to the reopening and saving the restaurant industry. So we were completely disappointed to learn that there was no inclusion put into the reopening of restaurants for alcohol for on-consumption. And furthermore, we also have been given no answers as to why we, as an industry, have not been allowed to sell alcohol. So the association, on behalf of its members, has certainly put together a letter through to Minister Patel, and we've asked him to please uplift the liquor ban within restaurants within 7 days, or to please outline the risk mitigation and the search that they've done that includes restaurants that will be irresponsible in liquor dispensement. We have paid enormous amounts of money for liquor licenses. We trade, we're responsible. We trade within the liquor bylaws, and we are certainly demanding that we allow alcohol sales with immediate effect. And it makes no financial sense for us to continue trading under these difficult circumstances.
It must be taking a toll, this back and forth, harping on the same points. Where do you think the blockages are?
You know, if we look at the journey that we've taken through COVID, it's been a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people. And whilst we've certainly not been experts at COVID at all, we've given government and the leadership and the presidency our support as an industry, and we've done what we've needed to do to respect their decisions in slowing down the curve. But when irrational decisions are made without proper conclusive arguments, we have no choice but to challenge those arguments and to challenge the livelihood of our people. You know, on a daily basis, we've got dozens of people losing their jobs. It's going to put more pressure on the economy in South Africa, and our businesses simply can't sustain without going back to what our businesses are about. The first turn, you know, we had restrictions, limited in seating, limited in timing. Then the second part of that came where we were only allowed delivery services. The third part of that came where we were only allowed to do takeaways and deliveries. Then we had to reinvent our businesses to bottle stores. And now we've got to change our full-scale businesses into coffee shops. This is not what the restaurant industry is about. And we've got restaurants and wine farms. I mean, how on earth do we expect those restaurants to open if they don't have the experience of wine with their food or wine pairing or the ability to enjoy any type of alcoholic beverage with your consumption? That is the experience of what our business model is about, and we need to return to our businesses in the normal frame. You know, no other industry is asked to have an adjustment. You know, you don't go into a supermarket and not give the shoppers a trolley. It's the same not allowing people in a restaurant not being able to serve alcohol.
As it stands, customers are allowed to buy alcohol at a restaurant and consume at home. Does this make a difference at all?
Not at all. It's added no benefit to us. We can't compete in the market of the high-volume retailers, and we're not a retail alcohol outlet. So, and, you know, the limitation on time also hasn't lent itself to be beneficial in terms of our financial model. You know, consumers are ordering dinner, but we can't deliver a bottle of wine because alcohol sales end at 5 o'clock.
Let's talk about, move away from alcohol and talk about the allocation of people going into the restaurants, the limitations to the number of guests. What's happening there?
So according to the minister's speech, there was no limitation set on numbers. However, there is limitation on social distancing. So we've put all the applications in process to ensure that the health and safety of both our staff and the consumers is the highest priority of all restaurants. All restaurants will continue to support the protocols and ensure that they meet the requirements to ensure that this is actioned every day. Training has been happening, a lot of training in the industry. I know a lot of the association bodies, not only ourselves, have been issuing a lot of training and doing a lot of consumer education in terms of the readiness for us to open and how we welcome the guests back into our restaurants. And we certainly hope that today is a great day for supporting our restaurants. And as the weeks and days unfold, we certainly hope that we'll be in a position to save the restaurant industry in South Africa.
Just give us a sense of readiness in terms of the restaurants. Are you able to speak also for restaurants that are not part of your membership?
We've had a huge amount of restaurants that have fallen prey to the totality of the difficulties of trading through COVID. You know, the restrictions within converting our businesses into different business models has put a lot of financial pressure on a number of restaurants, so they unfortunately are not opening their doors, and they are iconic to the tourism belt around South Africa. The second part is obviously there's a lot of restaurants that simply will not be opening because liquor sales is not a part of their platform, and they cannot further take any more risk to put themselves into more debt. There's been very little relief in terms of funding and bank lending, etc. And our restaurants are really frail. And I think those restaurants that have chosen to stay closed today until the liquor ban is lifted have made the decision to support their financial models. So we certainly have some restaurants, and a lot of restaurants are excited to open today. They are ready for the customers. They've got their health protocols in place. Staff have been trained. And we certainly are welcoming the consumer back to come and enjoy their favorite meal in their favorite restaurant.
Wendy, before I let you go, just on a different conversation, the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, in one of his addresses, mentioned that things needed to change in the restaurant industry, saying that a few years ago when he would go into a restaurant, about 10% of the employees would be foreign nationals, and today about 100% of the employees are foreign nationals, and saying that in order to get more government support going forward, restaurants need to change this. What conversations are being held in this regard?
We've certainly invited Tito Mboweni to please bring the conclusive study that's been taken place in our restaurant industry that proves that that statement is in actual fact true. On the contrary, we have different research that we brought to the forefront. What I can also tell you is that in terms of all the government funding that was put together for restaurants, I know very few restaurants have been able to receive any of the relief that was given in terms of those loans. It hasn't been a favourable opportunity for our restaurants to take up, and what I do know is that the banks have deemed us as technically insolvent and as high risk, so many banks are not lending money to restaurants. The UIS and the TERS has also been discrediting to us as employees. We've felt that our employees feel that there's been a huge delay, which there has been 15 weeks. They still haven't got the systems and controls in place to effectively make payments, and they've got other challenges within the UIF and TERS to dispense those payments. So, you know, we find this completely unacceptable that many of our staff have still not been paid. We also have had to do enormous layoffs. So the amount of permanent retrenchments taking place that we've seen over the last 2 weeks is huge. It's enormous. And those staff are now resting on the country's economical system and on the unemployment system. So the more restaurants close down, the more amount of people are left jobless, and the more impact it's got on those people's families. So I think we're only starting to see the devastation now in the last 3 weeks, and moving forward in the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to see a lot more critical matters, not only with restaurants closing down, but the amount of unemployment that's taking place within our sector. You know, we've been deemed as the largest employment sector. We are a huge contributor to the GDP, and government really needs to stop and have conversations with us and engage with us. You know, they can't keep looking at how to manage our business if they're not completely understanding of how the financial model works and how small businesses within our sector operate. And they also need to have conversations with us, deeper conversations on the amount of staff that we employ and now how many people sit on the unemployment sector.
Yeah. For people who wanting to go out to restaurants today, give us a sense of the details, the times and the limitations and all of that.
So there's no restrictions on timing of opening. So our restaurants are open and ready for trade. And obviously the restrictions are 1.5 meters apart. You need to wear a mask, a shield, and the staff need to be 1 meter away from the tables. All the protocols have been published on our website and our Facebook page, and it's been made public to everybody. They'll be available through mechanisms within the restaurants, and restaurants will continue obviously to exercise these good protocols.
Obviously, the masks are only at entry point, because at some point when you start the act of consuming food, the mask is going to be off.
Yes, it will be impossible to consume food with a mask on.
Yeah. All right. Further conversations with government? What's happening from here on?
So we've given the Department of Trade and Industry, Minister Patel, 7 days to refer back to our attorneys, Mooney Ford, and to give us a conclusive answer as to how we're going to lift the alcohol ban or the reasons why they will keep it, and the evidence on the study, that research that's been done that eliminates us from continuing to serve alcohol. And we'll have further engagements, obviously, with landlords to work with us in rebuilding the industry. We'll have further engagements with the banks to look at ways of relaxing some of the credit scoring in order to give financial support for cash flow for the restaurants to continue. We continue to put pressure on the UIF to get those payments out from April. It's imminent that they need to get it out. We need to have further conversations with government to extend the TERS because we're still not fully operational, and it's really important that the fund continues to support the restaurants that are on temporary layoffs. And we've got a number of other engagements that we have to have with small business development minister in terms of what the revival plan, the resuscitation plan is for those iconic restaurants that closed around the country, and as well as a lot of other restaurants that are sitting on a very frail position. You know, if we don't get these restaurants open, we're going to lose the entire restaurant industry in South Africa.
Wendy, just out of interest, this COVID-19 outbreak and the attendant lockdowns have really kept RASA quite busy, like I imagine busier than you've been in recent history. What have been the lessons learned for you in terms of policy, government policy affecting your sector?
You're absolutely right. There's so many learnings that's come out of this, and the self-regulation with our industry is really a key factor in having more engagement with government to formalise the education part of it, to bring more of a formalisation in terms of job descriptions, waiters, barmans, baristas, etc., bring in trade qualifications and assist these beautiful people that work in our restaurants to, you know, have a formal qualification. Furthermore, we've also looked at the amount of really large leases that we are engaged in and the amount of financial structure that needs to be remodeled in terms of moving forward with the restaurant industry. We've also looked at our important communication and collaboration as with our partners. We've looked at the impact on the supply chain and the cost of food products to us, and the conversations that need to continue happening within our industry in order to mobilise it and to stabilise it and moving forward.
Wendy, thank you so much for the time given to us, and hope to talk to you another time soon.
I look forward to meeting you too. Thank you.
That was Restaurant Association of South Africa CEO Wendy Albert.